Welcome everyone to round 4 of the MX5 Super Sprint Championship, the championship finale for season 1 here. We are at the national circuit at Donington Park, a much shorter version than the international. We're skipping the chicanes and keeping a very close, tight racing here. I'm John Vining. We are 5 minutes now into qualifying, 9 minutes left on the clock here. We've got 11 cars, and at the front, it's very, very close. Just a quarter of a second separating the top 5 right now. You've got Lars Fischer on pole position provisionally right now with a 1:16.557, with Brandon Hawken, your championship leader, just 3/100ths behind. Pablo Espes in 3rd, Jason Cooper in 4th, and Philip Machewski in the Ronin Simsport machine in P5. The storyline right now for the championship, well, you've got Brandon Hawken with a considerable lead of 12 points over Gabriel Erdelli and Philip Machewski, who are both tied for 2nd, and then just 3 points behind them, you've got Pablo Espes in 4th, and Jason Cooper 8 points behind in 5th. So it must be said, if you're Brandon Hawken, you are looking to have a very consistent pair of races today. You just want to keep it clean, stay near the front, and you are bound to bag the points needed to secure this championship. For those trying to be around the top 5, I would still expect them to be flat out to get every point that they can, because it's all up for grabs. If anybody has issues, especially in the reverse grid, it is still all to play for. Clock's winding down a little bit. We're trying to see who is on for a decent lap. We'll switch over now to Robert Dindy, if we can find him here in the Ronin Simsport machine. And he's flying up through McLean's and Schwann's curve from the old hairpin now. He's on for a decent lap to start with. His best currently 1.6 off with a 1:18.0. We're tracking him now to be on for a 1:17.5, so about a half-second improvement. It's a decent start to the lap for him. Can he keep it up? He's searching for that apex, very blind apex there. He's managed to do it, grabs 2nd gear, upshifts to 3rd right on the rev limiter. Now just a pair of corners to go. The final chicane. Let's see if he's able to navigate it, where he's going to throw the car completely over the curbs. Just very aggressive. You can see it there. Manages to keep it on track just about. Let's see if he improves from his P8 position. And he's going to... Not quite. No, not quite from Denny. Improves his time, but not his position, as we have a change at the front now, where we see Pablo Espes in 2nd, and Jason Cooper now taking pole position provisionally with a 1:16.3. Very, very big progression now at the front. Very fast evolution in the times, as we've progressed about 3 or 4 tenths already. With 6 minutes left on the clock, we're past halfway now in qualifying, and we see a few cars resetting to the pits, getting a new set of tires now. We've got most cars on a cooldown lap. We see Gabriel Erdelli actually is on for a decent lap. Let's grab him and ride on board with him in the car. So he's got a draft now, you can see, of Machewski. Let's see if he can help him finish this lap. He's on for at least a 1:16.4, which will improve his position considerably. Very late on the brakes by both of these cars. We've got a train now of Ronin cars. Aggressive curb use inside and out. Now it's just a short run to the line. Let's see, he's on for a good lap. This could be a pole position here for Erdelli. Yes, it is. That is a 1:16.149. Pole position by almost 2 tenths of a second, and right now nobody looks like is going to have anything for him. Most people right now are just getting reset now with 5 minutes left on the clock. It's a short lap, so they do have time to reset and get one more stab at it. See the 2 Ronin cars now drafting, trying to get a good run up the hill if they can. Let's check them out. We've got Robert Dendy, who's still in the hunt for P5 in the championship. It's a long shot. He's 14 points behind Jason Cooper, but a pair of good races would mean it's all to play for. So you never know. Don't count Robert Dendy out. We've seen him come from the back of the field multiple times. So again, there's a lot of storylines here, and the question is, what do you do? How aggressive do you be? When do you make those decisive moves? Because it always comes down to the wire in these races. It seems like it's always so close. So how do you, like, if you're one of these drivers and you're separated by 1 or 2 tenths, how do you find the right moment to strike when if you settle in for 2 or 3 laps, all of a sudden you lose 8 spots and now you're back in 9th, you're almost last. It's not easy. That's why we see the likes of Pablo Espes time and time again go for that pole position, take the lead early, and defend as much as possible. But by all means necessary to maintain that P1. It's very challenging. So I'm now going to introduce you to the other man in the booth, Mr. Jake Sperry. Jake, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you, John. This is a qualifying where it is fast, it is quick, but I think that the racing today may be more important than where drivers place it over the course of qualifying. We see that qualifying has the top 6 drivers split by half a second, and then the next 4 drivers are in a 4/10 bracket, 7/10 of a second behind. It is a showcase here as they look to try and make their challenges today of how quickly can they navigate this national layout circuit. And it is truly here, John, one of the most traditional ways to end a season, to go to a track combination which naturally suits the grassroots development of motorsport in the United Kingdom, and will do so again, showcasing qualifying, which is currently just a split of a 1/10.5, Gabriele Delia over to Jason Cooper.
Absolutely. It is a great way to end this. We've had a few tracks now where they're very draft dependent, you would say, more pack racing, like the long back straight at Road Atlanta, but there's not so much of that here. A lot of elevation change, a lot of high-speed corners with this tricky chicane to navigate at the end. You would expect a little bit less of that pack mentality here at Donington.
You certainly would do, but I wouldn't put it past for that to still continue on with the racing. Brandon Hawkin and his championship is almost all but secured with the 11 drivers here today, and with the qualifying efforts that are going in. Brandon Hawkin has an almost unassailable lead at the top of the championship, and knows that 2 consistent finishes, or even just the 1 consistent finish, will be enough. Top 5 will probably get the job done here, John.
Yeah, it looks that way. If he bags a pair of top 5 finishes, that would secure Brandon Hawkin the championship for the inaugural Season 1 of MX5 Super Sprint.
Yeah, and this 4-race season, Brandon Hawkin for SRC Movano Corsa, the former Thrustmaster Movano. What an incredible team that is. Have an incredible lineup of drivers, most known for the work that they do on a endurance level. They are probably the best team, or one of the best teams out there that are not connected to an affiliate team out there like Porsche or BMW or the like. But definitely when it comes to the work that they've been doing, it's going to be Brandon Hawkin trying to go through. Lars Fischer jumps up late then here in qualifying. They're down to the final 30 seconds now as one driver looks to try and take the aggressive line into the pits. But crucially enough, Fischer now up to 4th place, so was able to improve on time. Does leave Filip Matrevsky a little bit stranded in 6th position, but they have to all get to the line. There is the Obsidian car then of Pablo Espes, making a heavy attack through the final corner, pushed slightly too much, and round he goes, knocking the rear tyre into the barriers, and that should bring an end then to qualifying proceedings. We'll take a little look then at the starting grid and see how everybody is going to stack up today from this field overall. It will be Gabriele Delia who will be on the pole position, with Jason Cooper alongside for company. Pablo Espes and Lars Fischer will be on row 2, with Filip Matrevsky and Brandon Hawkin they share row number 3. Daniel Munoz will be in 7th position. Robert Dendy will start in 8th with Shane Piggott and Lee Martin in 9th and 10th. And it will be the 2-2-3 of Ellis who will lead everybody back through in 11th position, making up everyone starting on the grid. But that run then to the first corner is crucial. Redgate, because drivers are going to try and maximize as much as they can off of this start.
Absolutely. Fairly short run to the line, but a long run downhill to the old hairpin with room to cross over back and forth out of turn 1. We know the guys at the front are very aggressive about maintaining their track position early. So on these cold tires, this may be your best chance to get that spot, as the pack will then form, and we will start to divide up based on speed. So you would expect the run down to the old hairpin to be very, very exciting and chaotic.
I expect there is just enough straight in these Miatas, these MX5s, that there will be opportunities to find overtaking. Let's get the lights on though here, because race 1 of 2 of this championship finale here at Donington Park will start right now. Very soft the getaway then for Lee Martin in what was 10th position. A very nice start though from the front of the field. Espes already trying to think about what ways he can go and make some moves. It looks like a good start as well from Filip Matrevsky, who's going to sneak up 2 places off the start. A little bit of argy-bargy as they now crest down through Hollywood and the Craner curves for the first time. Espes trying to push her second. Matrevsky up 2 spots. Struggling a little bit was Lars Fischer. He got the wrong side of it in the 5-star car, but at the old hairpin through the brakes, it is going to be Pablo Espes making the move, jumping just up to second, having a little moment, and Matrevsky going for second now through the Schwanz curve all the way up to Coppice Corner.
Very, very aggressive from Pablo Espes, diving up the inside of Lars Fischer into the old hairpin, making it stick, but now he's getting pushed wide. He's on the grass, losing a hand over fist, down towards the back of the pack as we go through McLean's, and is a decisive lead for Gabriel Erdelli, with Jason Cooper and Pablo Espes trying to fight back towards the podium.
Yeah, so the move done then at McLean's corner, and then it went to Coppice, and that was where the trouble started. Watch out, though, for that anti-cut curb. We saw it at the back end of qualifying with everyone pushing on it. Very easy to try and attack that section of road, but very easy as well for these MX-5s to be unsettled, because it's like effectively trying to crest a mountain the way that you jump over. Espes with another look to the inside, this time on Brandon Hawkin in this 20-minute race, and not able to find a pass. But Adelyi out then to a 1-second lead over Matrevsky in second, with Cooper in third. And they can't afford to really battle at this stage of the race. They can't let him get away, Gabriel Adelyi, at this point. They want victories outright. They're going to have to work for it and not race amongst themselves.
It's tricky, because we say it time again, how much Espes wants to lead, and now he finds himself in P5 with 3 very strong cars in front of him, and to pass them, I would guess they'd lose probably 2 or 3 seconds fighting, and then that is an automatic win for the Ronin car.
And that was a little bit of oversteer there for Lars Fischer over then the Coppice curbs, and just like that, he will start to drop back. They will run then to the Goddard chicane, the final section of road going through the right and the left, which ends out the lap. And it is a very consistent train out here at the front. This goes all the way back to Robert Dendy in 8th place, like Daniel Ariel Munoz in there in 7th. Will definitely want to try and get into involvement at this point. So there is certainly a way to go through. As we say that, Daniel Ariel's just gone around then at the opening corner and has been clobbered by Robert Dendy out on track. Very quick. It goes from right to wrong, and just going through turn 1, losing the back end, I believe, on the downshift there, John.
Let's see if we can get a replay of what happened there from Daniel Munoz. See, going into turn 1, still the tire's a little bit cold, tries to grab the curb, exactly like you said, likely the downshift that would have caused that. Very unfortunate for the number 7 Project Dynamic machine.
Well, it might be Project Dynamic, but right now it's dynamically not in the right position there. There's a big dent where that is out and overall. So there will still be a lot of work. Darren Ellis did not take to the start, so just the 10 drivers then trying to secure this finale. Back on the brakes again goes your race leader, but it is being hauled in to Gabriel Adelyi right now by Filip Matrevski, who qualified the car in 5th position. And it's going to be all about timing, I think. This is a race of timing. Time your move at the right time, as Pablo Espes decides, you know what, turn 1 is my time. He's going to lunge up the inside, make the pass then on Brandon Hawkin, who falls back into 5th position, a gain of +1 so far on his first race, and through the crane of curves once again.
Gap now down to just half a second between the top 2 Ronin cars, and we can see Jason Cooper trying to push Matrevski up the hill, it seems. Would you expect these top 3 to try to form a pack to break away, or do you think they even have the pace to do it? Because you have Espes and Hawkin right behind them, and if they work together at all, you would think they could keep up with this pack.
You'd think, but I don't think that they'd actually be in a position to really get away. We know how quick Pablo Espes can be on a good day, and even on a not so good day, he's up there and he's racing about looking for victories. So I definitely do believe that there is going to be a sense of great racing that's going to come along from them, and already just that run through the final chicane brings them back to a level keel through this front 5. So no real worries to speak of at this point. They are distancing though from Lars Fischer. The gap now 1.4 seconds. So Fischer might be the first to fall off the back in terms of those groups out there at this point in time. That's going to be the last thing that they really want to be dealing with. But you can just see running down through just how dirty the screen can get going through these sections of road. You get a lot of dirt that kicks up off of the exit, and you're mostly seeing it out of corners like the old hairpin, where many drivers are trying to just push and use all the road, all of what's available to them here. And knowing how much track you can take around this circuit really does help. What it won't help is a little bit later on when you bring all of that dirt back onto the circuit and really affect the way that the circuit works through iRacing's dynamic track system.
Yes, all the sand and little grass, especially after the recent update where the grass is much more slippy, as that continues to pile up on the track over and over, the racing line won't be very much affected because the cars keep sweeping it off. But if you go offline to try to make that overtake, the sand and the dirt and the grit will still be there, and you'll all of a sudden it'll be like you're driving on ice. You'll have no grip at all, and you'll fall right off the circuit as a big lunge by Jason Cooper up the inside of Matrevski. Espes saying, you know what, I'm going to try to follow my way through, but doesn't quite get the run. He's going to slot in 4th behind Matrevski.
I'm not going to let you bump draft. Today is going to be a day where if you want to try and get through, you want to try and help and get one of those 2 Ronin cars to win the race, you're going to have a 5-star problem in me. And Jason Cooper knows and understands that he has to break up the syncopation at the front of the field and just go on and try and challenge. That's the way he wants to go about it. He caught Matrevski napping into the opening corner. Pablo Espes nearly did the same. It's half defended up the hill then by Matrevski here, wanting Pablo Espes kept well away from the front of this field.
Interesting here, your championship leader, Brandon Hawkin, in 5th. He's clearly got the pace. He's hanging around. He's very close, but we haven't seen any bold moves from him yet. Driving a very calculated, measured drive so far. Still hanging around, but interesting to see if he rides there or if he tries to grab any positions.
Espes with a small tap to the back of Matrevski, but here comes Jason Cooper looking for the race lead, is going to sneak away up the inside and is going to take the place. So a wonderfully constructed move, and the move in fact completed. Issues out there as well for Shane Piggott. He's down in the pits, and the issue he had was coming through, I believe it was coming through McLean's corner, lost the back end up the hill, tried to catch a tank slapper 1, 2, 3 times, and as you can see here on screen, bosh. That's the end of his race.
Oh, yeah. That was a big impact. Very unfortunate. But still, he'll have another chance in the reverse grid for race 2, so hopefully he'll take a breath, learn from it, and and he'll be right there in the mix once more.
Certainly will do. And let's head ourselves back to live then at this point in time. We're on board with the number 35 machine of Jason Cooper, who leads this field outright, passing the former International Exhibition Centre. I do believe they knocked it down in more recent years, but as they run through the rights and the lefts, they know that they'll be coming up towards half distance in this race, and it has been patient from the likes of Brandon Hawking behind, who doesn't want to really put himself in the race just yet, doesn't want to show his cards too early. Here comes Pablo Espes with a look to the inside. Matreski's going to have to leave in the room as Espes once again takes advantage then of the Ronin car, but it's going to have to do all the work down the Craner curves. Try and make this happen, holding around this next big left-hand bend. Very easy for single car contact to come along through, but then at the old hairpin, has the inside, but will there be drive off the exit? The answer is no, but Matreski bottled up, coming under Starkey's bridge and heading up through the Schwanz curve over now to McLean's. It's going to be tough now for Pablo Espes to do anything about it. It's going to allow Matreski through, but this is where this Donington circuit, John, is so great for car control, because any corner you go in aggressively on the inside, you can always gather it back on the exit.
Yeah, and he was very aggressive, Espes, on the entry and the exit as he goes defensive now into the final chicane, now towards the straight. Gonna throw it over the curbs. Who's gonna be the last of the late breakers? It looks like Matreski just barely, but they are side by side. There's contact between them. Espes in the grass. It looks like Matreski may have a slowdown as Hawken is going to go side by side and take the position. And he looks to have cleared it now if he had one.
No, it's Pablo Espes who had the slowdown and is going to fall back into the clutches of Lars Fischer. So let's get some Noah's Ark sim racing going here. They come in 2 by 2 by 2 and by 2 at this point. And there is no hurrah for Daniel Munoz. He's on his own in 9th position in this race. So top 6 looking good. Let's give some love back to 7th and 8th place here, because Robert Dendy and Lee Martin are having their race out as well. And they'll be looking to try and see who can put themselves in the right place. They're already 13 seconds off of the race lead, but the work that they'll be doing early is going to be about, okay, I'm going to want this position, and it's a case of either A, I'm faster if I'm Robert Dendy and I'm going to try and pull away, or Lee Martin just hanging on to the coattails until the right time to strike.
Yeah, he's very much on his coattails within the draft. We've seen Lee Martin have some pace. With 8 minutes to go now in race 1, let's see if he can unlock it and get up to the back of Robert Dendy and make that position up. No doubt I'd expect him to be at the very least in the draft now towards the end of the race, but we'll see if he has enough pace to overcome Dendy. It's one thing to catch the driver, but it's another thing to pass, as we know. So we'll see if Lee Martin has what it takes.
We've also just had a pass as Matreski gets back through for 3rd position on Brandon Hawkins. So that's an important change as the group behind of Espes and Fischer starts to close in on those two in front. Hawkins with a little think at the old hairpin. And for a weird thing as what the old hairpin is, it's never actually been a hairpin.
Yeah, it's easily the fastest hairpin I've ever driven in my sim racing career. You fly through there. In the MX5, you are, on cold tires especially, you are dead sideways all the way through it. It's not just an easy downshift, turn the wheel and go. It's very challenging, and for me, it's the iconic corner at Donington.
It is a very iconic corner, and when you go through the fast section of road, it is one which certainly helps downforce, but actually the lack of downforce that drivers have with the old hairpin and the run down the Craner curves actually makes the Craner curves such a more iconic corner, because you are right on the edge of grip. Speaking of, wide through the final corner goes Pablo Espes once again. He'll get away with it this time, but it just goes to show you that all of this machinery is trying to rally its way around. And when you're dealing with an MX5, especially with a Mazda, one thing we have to talk about here that we haven't had a chance to, John, is talking about the rotary engine.
Yes, yeah. Mazdas are well known for their small displacement rotary engines. These Mazda MX-5s, to my knowledge, they haven't had one with a rotary. It's an inline 4, but 1.6 or a 2-liter, but still very well known for their reliability and their dependability. As here internationally, they've had tens of thousands of engines in these cars, pounding away hundreds of thousands of miles around the world on all of these racetracks, getting abused left and right. So really credit to Mazda and their engineers for creating something that is on the affordable side of the racing spectrum, and allowing people everywhere to get their hands on a race car and start getting up to speed.
And it's not just when it comes to the United Kingdom, it's the United States, everywhere around the world. The Mazda brand has been so good at getting drivers up to speed with what is amazing racing out there. It's still on 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, as well as the overall race between Jason Cooper and Gabriele Adegyi. We'll not forget about that, as we are soon approaching the final quarter of this opening race. It's a clear race out there in front, but as we look behind to the race going on for 7th, 8th, and now 9th position, Daniel Ariel Munoz still within 2 seconds. I'd say he still has a chance late, even with the damage on the car. This is going to be important. Martin down the hill, still keeping Robert Dendy in line, but only in line. Hasn't been able to make an inroad, stuck at about 0.4 of a second, and the differing lines at the old hairpin might be one of the reasons.
Yeah, you can see, it looked like Lee Martin was trying to more focus on entry speed a little bit, trying to charge in the corner, take advantage of the downhill run, whereas it seemed like Dendy backed up the corner a little bit, used the grass on the exit as a matter of fact, but still carried very good exit speed, which powered him all the way up the hill.
Powered up the hill, but ultimately keeping the gap as it is at the moment. So there's nothing really that can be done about that drive from Lee Martin. He's going to have to sit and wait. Top 6 still, all in shot together. 1.5 seconds the margin for Adegyi versus Matrevski. If Matrevski can get on the back, it will be 2 Ronin cars putting the pressure on the 5-star 35 of Jason Cooper. So that is the goal, surely, but he knows that if he can bring Matrevski along, Matrevski knows he can bring Hawkin along. If Hawkin's brought along, he knows he can bring Espes along. If Espes is brought along, the question is, can Lars Fischer get brought along? And that would be help. 2 5-star cars, 2 of the Ronin cars, and that would be a really awesome mix when you consider the SRC Movano Corsa machine and the Obsidian car, both trying to figure out where they stand in the shuffle.
So if you're Gabriele Adegyi in the Ronin car in 2nd, you've got your teammate a second, 1.3 seconds behind in 3rd. What do? Do you push Jason Cooper out and say, I want to make it a 1-horse race? Or do you try to lag back and see if you can give your teammate a chance to close in, and that way you have an ally where you can both fight for the win?
Well, they both want the win. That much we can definitely say. Question is, how are they going to go about it? This is going to be about finding the right time. And they click over 3 minutes 9 seconds on the clock. This is going to be very much a case of 3 laps to go, because they'll cross the line through 2.5 minutes through 2 laps with the way that they've been going. Gabriele Adegyi still chasing down the hill, and that gap still 1.3 over the line, but the key is Adegyi can't get much closer to Jason Cooper with that overtaking. You can see that through the old hairpin as they ran through. And Adegyi is just needing to find an exit from somewhere. Jason Cooper is doing just about enough. I won't call it the bare minimum, but it is just enough to keep behind Gabriele Adegyi. He's not having to make the big moves to defend just yet.
Yeah, we haven't seen any defensive driving from Cooper. We haven't seen any big attacks from Adegyi either. You might think that there's a truce on, but also, like, I agree with you, Adegyi hasn't really been close enough yet to make that move. He's just been barely kept at arm's length by the 5-star driver of Jason Cooper. So he's all over him, but he just couldn't quite dive inside. Otherwise, it would have been a big accident. But now it looks like there's going to be 2 laps to go now. So if there's anything left in the tank, we're going to see it.
Well, what's left in the tank is the gap is 1.1 now between 2nd and 3rd. So if Matrevski can catch this lap, this is big. For Jason Cooper, he's just about covering everything Brandon Hawkin might think about third, but fourth will be enough to secure the championship here. That much is very, very tantamount and clear at this point. Down the hill through the Craner curves. The race lead is still on as Cooper once again gets a very nice exit coming out of the old hairpin, and it gives himself the half a car length he needs to be safe when he gets to McLean's.
Yeah, Hawken in particular still starting to push Matrevsky, it looks like. Just a 10th behind him, just like we see Erdely's pushing Cooper. So Hawken is safe, but I think he wants a little more. Maybe he wants insurance for the reverse grid in case anything happens. So if he can grab a podium at least, he'll take that point away from Matrevsky.
Definitely love to take that point away. 1 point would be very nice. Erdely, another little look into the mirrors. He's not going to make a move this time. He's going to run out to 1 lap to go here, John. First or second, where would you rather be right now?
If I was in this race, I would like to be exactly where Jason Cooper is. I want the lead, and I want to be cocky and confident enough to say, I'm going to defend, I'm going to keep this position, you're not going to have it.
An attempt around the outside then, trying to find the place from Gabriel Erdely. That one doesn't work. Down the Craner curves, it will be for him, number 77, as he looks to try and secure back-to-back victories in the Sprint Championship. He was the winner of race 2 last time we were racing with you. But for Erdely, he's got to get a run up the hill here, over towards McLean's corner. Cooper's going to have to go defensive then to the inside. Erdely late on the brakes, trying to take it all the way around the outside. He's going to run out into the grass, and he's going to lose a lot of time, and that might cost him the win overall. It opens up Matrevsky's chance. It opens up Brandon Hawkins' idols for a podium. So can he find himself a chance? At least at this point, Jason Cooper's car placement was nothing short of superb in this opening race. You can't really argue too much about it. That was a race of sheer professionalism from Jason Cooper, who gives himself a 5-star drive and will come to line and take victory here in race number 1 here tonight from Donington Park. Erdely, Matrevsky, Hawkin and Espes your top 5. Fisher will end up in 6th place. The Dendy Martin battle is going to end in Robert Dendy's favour. Knock on wood through the final couple corners. We've seen how big those final curves are, and Robert Dendy will indeed here, John, hold off Lee Martin.
Oh, looks like that's it for the field. Everybody's crossed the line. We've had one DNF, unfortunately, Shane Piggott, due to that collision with the wall. But interesting enough, we talked about deciding where you want to be. It's a tricky one because Erdely looked like he was going to be able to pull the move off, and yet Jason Cooper, very, very precise with his car placement, able to maintain it, keep him just at arm's length. It was like he did it the entire race. He knew exactly how much to push, how much to keep in reserve for the last couple laps. Very calculated drive from the 5-star driver.
And calculated drives are pretty much what we've seen there to get through. So confirmation of result then, 20 minutes and 39 seconds in all for Jason Cooper. That's how long it took him to win this race, and he wins by a margin of 0.4 of a second, 4.5 tenths over Gabriel Erdely. Philip Matrevsky would finish third, 7 tenths down on your leader, with Brandon Hawkin in 4th position. Pablo Espes would come to the line in 5th, and Lars Fischer would mean that the top 6 would be split by just 2.4 seconds out on track. The other 3 drivers were 20 seconds plus behind, that being Robert Dendy, Lee Martin, and Daniel Ariel Munoz, who spun through the opening corner and then took contact from Robert Dendy. Shane Piggott's race finding itself in the barriers then very much after what was going on at McLean's, and Darren Ellis, a non-starter in the opening race. We're going to step aside for just one moment. You can keep an eye out on all that is going on out on circuit. We'll be back with race number 2 and a little bit more breakdown after this. Welcome back then, ladies and gentlemen, to the final round of your Super Sprint Championship. Everything came down to what was close fought racing in the opening heat. Jason Cooper alongside me right now, picking up the victory in race number 1. Jason, first and foremost, that sort of race was sort of like a sparkler refusing to go off. You had yourself a lot of patience needed early. You got yourself to the front, but the key was to stay there. And Adelyi waited, and waited. And by the time he tried to find a way around the outside, you had it scouted.
Yeah, it was a good race. Been struggling a little bit since the new build on the car, and I don't know, it's just not suiting my driving style, or I haven't found something on the setup yet. But I lucky in qualifying to get a good tow with Lars to put me somewhere near the front, and I didn't think I was going to have the pace to stay at the front when I did get to the front, but I think they were battling behind a bit, which dropped them back a little bit and just gave a bit of breathing room.
So talk us through then the setup in terms of what you need to be keeping an eye out on in these Mazda MX5s, because you're looking to try and make the car maybe as responsive as possible, get enough turn in and carry the speed. Where is it that you feel the problem is compared to some of the other drivers around you?
Yeah, well, the MX5 obviously hasn't got much power or much grip, so you've got to keep as much momentum up as you can. Keep that corner speed up. But yeah, going into the corners, it's a bit snappy for me. And well, yeah, once you lose the rear end, there's not really much recovery in it. You lose so much time. So it's the corner entry that I'm struggling with mainly. But yeah, it's a good challenge that it has changed. Rather than keep driving around doing the same thing all the time, it's good to have a challenge of it changed. I'll get there in the end, I'm sure.
Oh, you've already got there, so to speak, because you got a victory. You'll have to go from the back of the field to charge forward. It's not going to be as difficult. The top 3 drivers then in this race are, maybe with the exception of Daniel Ariel, are going to be, in at least from the times we saw over that opening race, pretty simple to deal with. But when you've got a field like this, and yes, it's not numerous, but you've got 6 drivers who consistently every single week are 6 of the fastest MX5 drivers in the world of iRacing. Just how much of a privilege is it to race with such strong and I would say clean drivers with the way they've been running so far this season?
Yeah, the talent at the front is immense. So to be mixing with them is great. And yeah, I haven't had much luck in the reverse grids so far this season. I've been involved in a few crashes, so hopefully that's not another one today.
Well, hopefully we don't see that from you. Jason, before we let you go on and get ready for your second race, is there anyone you'd like to thank for the victory in race number 1?
Just thanks to my teammates, Lars, for keeping me motivated, working on setups together and stuff. So yeah, cheers, Lars.
Well, Lars getting a lot of love. Jason Cooper there joining us, a victory overall in the opening race of tonight. But John, we're now going to move ourselves over then to this second race, and it's going to be pretty much about focus. It is about focus on getting the best start, because we've seen so often in this second race, those who don't get a good start really pay the price for the rest of the race. That first lap on cold tyres is more crucial than anything else when it comes to these Spec Miatas MX5s when it comes to this race.
Yeah, we see the biggest variation in speed on those first 2 laps where the cars are very difficult to drive. That's where we see the talent from the top guys really shine through. That's why it seems like no matter what, it's always the same players. At the end of the second race, despite the reverse grid, they're able to find a way through while the tires are still coming up to temperature, be it setup or difference in driving, what have you. They find a way to make it happen.
They find a way to make it happen, and we'll take a look at how they line up on the grid. So no Darren Ellis, so that will mean Shane Piggott will have the pole sitters position with Daniel Ariel and Lee Martin second and third. So then from there, it will be Robert Dendy, Lars Fischer, Pablo Espes, Brandon Hawkin, Philip Matrevsky, Gabriel Adelyi, and Jason Cooper making the field. It does change technically where the start goes. Shane Piggott, you would say, has a much more preferred start on the outside heading towards turn number 1. He'll have the rubbered up circuit. Everyone quickly on the grid then for this race around the national layout of Donington Park. Final race of the season. Hawkins Championship all but secured. Slow off the line goes Piggott. He was slow to react to the lights for the second time, but we get ourselves underway, and that's going to immediately put Daniel Ariel Munoz in the prime position, heading towards turn number 1. He lunges through on the brakes and takes the place. Robert Dendy will be looking for second position now as they all start to rally together. Pablo Espes got a fantastic start, and he's already jumping through a couple drivers, but he can't afford to get caught out on the wrong side of things, down the Craner curves and into the old hairpin for the first time. And you've got to be aggressive on this opening lap. Well, now we're starting to see it.
Big accident at the front. Looks like that's Mitrowski.
And Brandon Hawkin is caught up in it. He caught the brunt of it. Lee Martin around then for the count, but Brandon Hawkin took an almighty whack as he went through car 99. Nowhere to go. He was completely unsighted.
Let's see if we can figure out just exactly what happened, because there is big championship implications. Oh, you can see the contact there from Hawkin, just T-boning the Ronin Simsport car. Big accidents on lap 1 here on cold tires. Like we mentioned, this is the biggest risk.
It is the biggest risk, but where could he go in that situation except dancing off into the grass on the opening lap? Brandon Hawkin, nothing really he could do. But there has been a spin, and it's Daniel Ariel from the race lead who's gone around, was being chased, and all of a sudden finding out that cold tires through the Goddard chicane is really difficult to deal with. So Ariel will lose out from 7th to 1st on the opening lap. It's Pablo Espes who has the lead. Matrevsky in 2nd. Fisher is 3rd. Shane Piggott's done well. He's still in 4th position. There's Jason Cooper. Brandon Hawkin in 6th. Adelie now up into 7th. Munoz back in 8th. And it's Martin 9th. And Robert Dendy in the pits with damage in 10th position. So I'd say strong start from Pablo Espes, but he's still going to have to deal with the likes of Matrevsky and Fisher. Fisher's probably the one driver who's going to wish he had a couple tenths of a second in the back pocket. He's got to stay with Matrevsky in this race.
Absolutely. Now with the field spread out like this, it's now crucial that Matrevsky and Fisher work together to hang on to Pablo Espes, the leader, who loves to be in this spot, loves to try to break away. And looking at this, we can confirm, I think it was Robert Dindy, who's the Ronin Simsport machine, that looks like lost it in the old hairpin. Let's see if we can find out just what happened.
Yeah, so that was him, and this was the spin. So he was the spinner all on his own, and then whack right into the rear suspension. That would have caved it in, and that then was a tow back to the pit. And his day over. No fast repairs when it comes to this series, but there's no incident count and no disqualification limit when it comes to this race. So everyone can keep racing so long as they have a car to race. Espes, though, being clawed back in at the front of this field by Matrevsky. Lars Fischer currently in 3rd. Shane Pigott 4th. Jason Cooper then in 5th place. Was able to avoid everything but lost a lot of time trying to pick through the pieces of what happened on the opening lap. But Matrevsky has found the back of the Spaniard Pablo Espes and is going to be looking to try and figure out where is the right way to make a pass in this MX5. It is not simple. It is not easy. But what he does know is that he's got a lot of time to make the move. 16 minutes and 16 seconds.
Yeah, there's a lot of time left. It all kicked off on that lap 1. Say it time and time again, how tricky these cars are to get underway when the pressures are still building, particularly after the recent iRacing update. For those who have driven it, it is not easy to get these cars going. And when you're talking about this series, this super sprint, every driver here is flat out the entire time looking for any advantage. They know the reverse grid lap 1 is their opportunity to get points back on each other, and unfortunately it all kicked off, and Brandon Hawkin was one of them that got the worst of it. He does appear to be going with decent speed now. He's running low 17s, so he is 6 seconds back from the lead, but it doesn't look like he's dropping. Doesn't look like he's at risk from anyone behind.
Well, speaking of dropping, Shane Pigott's just lost a place then, just getting very narrow, letting through, I believe, Jason Cooper up into 4th place. Didn't want anything to do with him as the race winner from race 1. looks to try and chase it all down here at Donington Park in Leicestershire, England. This now becomes a case for likes of Matrevsky and Fisher and Pablo Espes, who leads this race. What do you want to do? When do you want to do it? It's that sort of understanding today. Heavy amounts of curb going through the final chicane, and they are big anti-cut sausage curbs around this section of track, which is basically run by Motorsports Vision England, or Motorsport Vision Racing, MSVR. So those big anti-cut curbs are massive. A little look to the inside, or a big look to the inside, you could say there for Matrevsky doesn't work. But those anti-cut curbs, they are the bane of a lot of drivers' existence, but their use is not just to deter people from using the curbs, it's also to protect the track.
Yeah, I drove this in a practice session just the other day with a few of these drivers, and you set the car up for these long swooping curves, very, very soft, focusing on that mid-corner grip. But then when you go through there, it is not prepared to launch over those red curves. They are vicious. They throw the car left and right, but as you said, they're there for a purpose.
They are there for a purpose. A little bit of oversteer coming out of McLean's corner from Matrevsky opens up the door for Pablo Espes to start to think about running away with this. Just looking at the drivers then at the front. Fastest driver is actually Jason Cooper. He's over that last lap, 0.3 quicker than the race leader Pablo Espes over that lap. So Cooper is absolutely flying, trying to chase this down. A little bit further back, you've got now Brandon Hawkin, who's got the damage after that initial hit, and he'll be trying to get himself through towards the end. He may have got away with a bit of it, but I'm sure that he's still walking wounded, knowing that just a finish here will do and will secure, without any shadow of a doubt, this championship, no matter how they end up at the front.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to be able to beat Brandon Hawkin. Sorry, Brandon Hawkin looks like he's going to be able to beat Matrevsky in this championship. It looks like Gabriel Ardelli is still in the mix. We're trying to get those numbers for you here shortly, but as long as he keeps it clean, Hawkin is certainly going to lock up Season 1 of the Super Sprint Championship.
One thing I say is that apparently Brandon Hawkin is so good as he allows the place through Gabriel Ardelli. He's so good, apparently he can beat himself in a race, which is something that I think is rather clever. So Brandon Hawkin will have himself a lot to figure out as he goes through. Lars Fischer, though, in third, is starting to go into the sim racer's handbook of how to make an overtake. You're always told to make the car as wide as you possibly can. And what that means is that you just drive not necessarily in the toe when you want to make a move, but slightly outside of it, trying to get into that rear view mirror and trying to get into those side mirrors to say, you know what, I've got a way to make a move. Speaking of making a move, here comes Matrevsky up the inside. Pablo Espes is going to get a great run off for the exit here. Has to be squirreled across the curve slightly. So down the Crater curves, they race out then for the race lead as they go through. Now, this big left is going to be really telling for how they set up the old hairpin, and it's falling back into line into Matrevsky. He didn't want to go too wide at the old hairpin just yet. I don't blame you with 11.5 minutes to go.
Well, let's see if Lars Fischer wants to go side by side up the hill. No, he elects to back out of it now. Not quite at the halfway stage. And as you said, it seems like these 5-star drivers of Fischer and Cooper, they're very savvy with their racecraft. They know how to be measured, and they know when to make those moves. So interesting to see what chess pieces Lars Fischer decides to play here over the next few laps.
Well, 5-Star Motorsport made its name through the British Sim Racers MX5 League. That's where they had all of that major success and had seen a lot of that major success. A lot of these drivers are using this series really here, John, as a test bed, as they practice to move on forward to the likes of the Global MX5 Championship, which will be coming up in just around a month's time, starting its season off at Okayama. So they know that they want to get a handle on this car, and the fact that they're running races like these and getting that understanding and that racecraft and cooperation early on is putting them in good stead for what is the entirety of the 2022 season, into the 2023 season even.
Yeah, it's interesting with these MX5s. You wouldn't think there's a lot to dial in because you go, oh, it's just a road car. It's just a 2 liter engine or 1.6 now. It's not a lot of grip. I'll just get in and drive. But it's surprising how sensitive they are when you make a little shock change, a little bit of camber here, a little bit of crossweight. You can really fine tune them to your individual driving styles. So as you said, it's important for these drivers to take the time to do these tests, to compete hard against each other, to find these optimal settings and dial themselves in.
Now it's closing in on Shane Piggott. It's both Gabriel Adelier and Brandon Hawkin, so they both figure out that they can make a move. They've all got 12 seconds on Lee Martin, who's running 8th place and last in the field, but these two drivers are chasing down Shane Piggott, who for the last couple of laps, in fact for the last 6 laps, hasn't logged an official lap time on the iRacing system. So something there not right with the transponder. So there'll be more work to do to try and dissect how quickly they're being caught down. But Adelier running 16.7s. There's only one driver quicker than him at the moment, and that's the driver of Jason Cooper, who has brought a 4-second gap in this race, mind you, down to 1.5 to Lars Fischer, his teammate.
Yeah, he is definitely on the move now, and it's just 9/10 separating Fischer and Cooper, so he is getting a tow. He's getting some assistance now. Life is easier, and these two teammates now will be able to work together to attack the likes of Espes and the likes of Mitrevsky to try to work together to overcome them now with 8.5 minutes on the clock.
You might as well give Jason Cooper a red fez, call him Tommy Cooper, and say just like that, that's how he's been making the moves. He's been a magician in this race and has now officially caught the group. And now there are 2 5-star motorsport cars at the back, figuring, well, hey, this is how we go about it. And in speaking of how they go about it, where has Shane Piggott found himself? The answer is off the road, it looks like. But how has he gone off the road? I think it's once again a case of the technical issues. He moved over to one side. He hasn't been seen back since. And I think that is Shane Piggott's race over and done with, and what a real shame.
Yeah, very unfortunate. He had some internet issues joining the session, so we were hoping he had those rectified. We were sending some prayers his way, but looks like the internet gods just aren't with him today. So it's very unfortunate for that driver, but it's been great to have him. He's always done well, particularly in the reverse grids. He might struggle in qualifying here and there, but he was able always to hold some track position and make something out of the second race. So well done to him for this first season.
One thing I will say is that I've been taking a look at the Ronin Discord, the Super Sprint Championship Discord, I should say, as the let through of position, multi-21, or multi-35 as it would be at this stage for Jason Cooper. He'll move ahead of Lars Fischer. I have noticed that of all the drivers who are quiet and have absolutely nothing on, Filip Mitrevsky just doesn't want to hear anything. He just wants to get his head down and drive. He has been just sitting with Pablo Espes the entirety of this race, showing a couple times that he can move close, he can move alongside, but never really having the bite to make the entirety of the move. And as we watch then from a driver's perspective, running down the Craner curves, every single corner matters. Every kilometre an hour makes a huge difference. He's not going to get alongside close enough through the old hairpin, but you can see just how much he really has to work through this section to open up any opportunity of a move. He's right there. If he had a big lunge over to the inside, he'd have a chance, but he's just a little bit too far back for that. And now he's got Jason Cooper really sandwiching him in.
Yeah, he does. Mitrevsky's he's an interesting character. Like you said, he likes that concentration, being in his own head, focusing absolutely 100% on the task at hand. As he said, he is muted in that Discord despite his teammate being in there. But there really no chance for them to work together, unfortunately, because with that accident on lap 1, you've got Erdelli in 5th, 7 seconds back. So certainly Mitrevsky has to feel like he's on his own island. It's him versus the might of Espes, Fischer, and Cooper.
Filip Mitrevsky versus the world, anybody? Seems like a good movie to make, but through the opening corner once again. 5.5 minutes now and under. They're heading into that final quarter of the race once again. And this is where car placement becomes so vital. You're always trying to get one step ahead. And this might be the sort of lap here, John, where you're thinking maybe over a lap in advance on where one corner makes the difference to make a move.
So this is the 8th race. It's the 4th round, but it's the 8th race that these drivers have been together. And at the front, it's been the same characters every single race. So you know at this point, they know a lot about each other. They know the moves they like to make. They know where they're strong and where they're weak. So if you're Matrevsky, you're certainly sizing him up. You've watched him now for a race and a half here at Donington. You know where I need to get a run out of this corner and I need to lunge right here, right now to make it stick.
Certainly will. So now what is the next question? They can stay in this holding pattern for a very long time. Alternatively, they can go out and make it happen. Now, one thing that I find interesting is that Shane Piggott has actually been disqualified from the race. So that might be for not serving a black and orange mechanical flag, as Matrevsky now decides he's going to pull the pin with 4 minutes and 10 seconds to go. Gets up the inside then through Hollywood Corner, and the crane occurs. Pablo Espes, though, will pull alongside using the side draft to a bit of advantage then. How aggressive do you want to be? You're going to have to now at the old hairpin. It's going to try and push through the corner. Going to lean on each other slightly, but it is Espes who comes out ahead. Jason Cooper's been staring at this. He wants to go, and he'll go all the way to the inside. Suddenly, he will spring the track, trying to go from third to first. Gets attacked on the rear. A little bit of netcode with the tap on the rear, but he holds it together, and Espes still has to defend this one up to Coppice Corner. This plateaued right-hander, and over the crest and around the bend, it is still Espes just holding station. Here comes Matrevsky as they now run to the next section. Oh, and he turns him. He turns him over the front. Round goes Pablo Espes. Matrevsky, nothing he can do about that. Jason Cooper's about to go back-to-back to finish the season.
Oh, we're having to figure out what everything that happened there, what led up to it. It was complete chaos there as they crested the hill. But what came of it was a 1.3 second advantage for Jason Cooper with 3 minutes on the clock. You might as well just hand him the keys, say there you go, good night. That is it. The fight now is for second. It is a one-on-one fight between Matrevsky and Fisher. What do you think of that, Jake?
Well, what I think of it is Pablo Espes shut the door too late. That is as simple as what happened in that incident. Jason Cooper had his line, he picked it. Matrevsky, there was a gap open, you can see. He'll move slowly to the left, and that's where he gets the tap, because Matrevsky was trying to come through. It'll be better to see from an aerial perspective just exactly how that all came about, because it's about finding room, finding where the gaps are. It's always difficult to go 3 wide, but when the door's shut, you have to be very, very committed to finding that move. We'll take another look again. This time, this is Matrevsky's view, I believe, of all of this. No, that will actually be a little bit further back. So this is now trying to pass your way through all the smoke screen out then on circuit. It's very easy to go through. In fact, we'll go back to live pitch. This is where Espes is now. So Espes back in through and will be in 6th position. He's behind Brandon Hawkin. Adelyi in 4th, Fisher 3rd, Matrevsky 2nd, Jason Cooper 1 second to the good. 2 laps to go, but it's a second to catch, and Matrevsky's got a lot of work cut out if he's going to close that back down again.
Absolutely. Let's see if we can figure out just exactly what happened here with just a minute on the clock. We've got Espes here, and here we go. Let's see if we can figure out just what happens. He goes defensive. Oh, it's close. You could say he just appears to have shut the door really late.
And it's not a case of he's made a massive move here, John, to the left-hand side to try and cover that all up. He has made a very slow move to the left. So it's very difficult for Matrevsky to gauge when the gap is too small.
Yeah, so we have confirmation from Shane Piggott. It looks like just had some issues and needed to park it and stop and disconnect. Unfortunately, that's why it shows as disqualification. But there was no steward intervention on that incident. Now we're just going to start the final lap, And the gap at the front has closed up now, just 0.6 of a second between Cooper and Matrevsky, with Lars Fischer, Jason Cooper's teammate, just 0.8 behind second.
Well, the gap's come down by half. If Filip Matrevsky's going to have a chance of making this happen, he's going to have to do it on the final chicane at Goddard's. This entire lap, this final lap of the season, will be about Matrevsky chasing Cooper down. We know that Brandon Hawkin will roll about in 6th position to a championship with the way it all stacks out, the points that he scored early on the brakes then, through the old hairpin. 0.6 of a second gap is already down to 3.5. So more that Matrevsky can do, and he'll try and use every corner to his advantage. They'll crest up the hill, through here, the Schwantz curve, and over into the right of McLean's corner. It plateaus over the top when you want to put the power down, and it's very similar here at Coppice Corner. If you can make a pass here, this takes a lot of bravery to make it happen, but Matrevsky has found himself walled at about 0.3 of a second. If he wants to go and make this move, he's going to have to find an almighty lunge. But for Jason Cooper, he knows he's just got to hold off for one more corner. Here, one final chicane, through the right, through the left, back to back on what's been a really tough season for him. Jason Cooper will take the victory for 5-star, Matrevsky in second, and it's all getting on through the final corner. Espes gets pushed out wide, and Gabriel Adelye here, coming to the line, is just, and I mean just, 7,000 going to be ahead of Brandon Hawkin at the line.
Just indeed, with Cooper sweeping this round at Donington. Back-to-back wins, outstanding results, ending the season for Cooper after a tough start, but it is Brandon Hawkin, your championship winner for Season 1 of the Super Sprint Championship.
Just goes to show you how much class there is. Lee Martin is going to get out of Dodge early. He will finish the race 1 lap down by the looks of things. He'll have a minute to cross the line, but he's letting everybody go through before he gets back up to speed, which he doesn't have to do because he's still racing and the other drivers are just driving it back to the pit. But in terms of the race, that will be his then to do as he pleases with. But an incredible display here, John, up and down the order. And I think what really goes to show you is that there is a 6-car base at the front of the field that can probably go in an MX5 and challenge anybody in the world. And when I say challenge anybody in the world, you know, you're looking at where the best MX5 drivers are. I think the biggest challenge that iRacing has for MX5 drivers, apart from a championship that's coming up in 2023, is going to be VLNs. And, you know, you look at the drivers who are in the VLNs who are going incredibly quick in MX5s. It's very similar in terms of that sort of pace, which these drivers can do. The likes of the Sherney brothers, for example. It's that similar sort of pace.
Yeah, you don't expect, when people talk about MX5s, you wouldn't think of this to be the place of choice for top racing, and yet because the cars are so slow and so road based, it gives the chance for these drivers to shine through. As we can see, Brandon Hawkins celebrating his championship. You can tell it does mean a lot to him. And again, season 1 of this, and we have found these 6-7 drivers that week in, week out, they're within, what would you say, 1/10 of a second, if that. I mean, it's outstanding to watch. We're really excited to see what these drivers do in the Big Boy Series with the 2023 Global MX5 Challenge, as well as future seasons of the Super Sprint Championship coming up in a few months' time.
Let's get confirmation of result then here from Donington Park Racing Circuit, the national layout. Jason Cooper, your victor, then going back to back, does so in what is 20 minutes and 47 seconds. So running through the field, only cost him 8 seconds on his overall race time, was able to win by 0.2 of a second over Filip Matrevsky. Lars Fischer would finish off in third. It was a mad Texas scramble for 4th position, with Gabriel Adelye in 4th, ahead of the limping Brandon Hawkin in 5th place, who confirms his championship with Pablo Espes in 6th place. Lee Martin will finish the race, a minute 43 down, just cruising over the line in 7th, the last finisher, with Shane Piggott, Daniel Ariel, and also Robert Dendy. Non-finishers in the race, and a non-starter then is Darren Ellis. we are going to jump in with a couple of drivers. We'll start with the race victor. I had a chance to talk to him in race 1. John, you're stood by with Jason Cooper.
So, Jason, it's been a very up and down season. You've had a lot of bad luck starting out, like with Alton Park and with an incident in Atlanta as well, I believe. But here, your pace really came through. Very calculated, excellent racecraft inside and out. Tell us about this second race and how you're able to navigate the reverse grid and get that win.
And I was trying to be a bit steady at the start, and there was a couple of incidents in front of me. I almost had to stop to avoid some spinning cars, but luckily I avoided them and didn't get any damage. But there was quite a big gap to catch up, and just plugged away doing the fastest laps as I could. And I think they started battling a little bit out front, which helped me then get back in the tow, and then work the gap down, and then it all kicked off behind me, well alongside me, I think. There's a bit of touch on the straight. I was on the grass, a bit out of control, but I came out in front.
Well, we'll have to just confirm our final results with the stewards just to make sure everything is square and straight. But you should have secured at least P5, I believe, in the championship. Tell us about that grind and the uphill battle through the season, and if there's anybody you'd like to thank for this result.
Well, obviously it didn't start off so great, and I had a DNF in 2 of the first 4 races. So after that, it was kind of championships kind of down the pan. But I really enjoyed the racing. There's some really quick people, so to race against them is real good fun. So thank you to you guys for organising the league, and hopefully we can continue in the future.
Jason Cooper, everybody, your back-to-back winner, sweeping Donington, the final round of Super Sprint Championship. Must say a dominating performance by the 5-star motorsports driver. Now we're going to grab our championship winner provisionally, Brandon Hawken. Jake, is there anything you'd like to ask him?
There's a lot of things I'd like to ask you. Brandon, first of all, you came in today with a commanding margin and knew that with the small grid size today, it was all but one when you came into it. So 2 solid finishes, what you needed. Let's start with race 2. That would have been a little bit heart in mouth, the way that you were maybe a bit blindsided by Robert Dendy across the middle of the track after the old hairpin.
Yeah, that was a blind sight for sure. Just came through the corner, and then just out of nowhere, there was a car sitting sideways in front of me, and fortunately the hit was square on. I lost a lot of speed out of it, but it didn't kill the car. So that was the one thing I was worried about going into the second race was I just had to finish the race, and everything would probably be okay. But I was worried there for a moment, but I got back on track, and the car was still driving. So. It wasn't the flashiest way to do it, but I'll take it. That was a really great. It was only 4 weeks, but that was a really great season from everybody. And I just came into the last 2 races just trying to play it safe. I didn't want to get in any accidents, and fortunately for me, I had there was some misfortune, I guess, from my other championship competitors there, and I was able to get by there with I guess the least amount of issue there, and that was some really fun racing, and can't wait for the next one.
Well, the next one is certainly going to be a talking point. So you've got the target on the back going into that one from car number 99 to car number 1. That makes it a 100 performance from you. But talk about 2023 coming up for you. It seems like it's the most exciting time it's been in a very long time for MX5 style driving, Miata driving. For you, Brandon, as a driver who is part of a very, very strong sim racing team that has been for years in SRC Movano Corsa, and you're looking around the scene in iRacing at just what makes MX5 racing great. Is this probably the best time than ever to get in and get into, racing around the most driven car in iRacing?
Oh, I think so. Yeah. There's of course, the car is always very seems very dynamic each season. There's a lot of changes. So a season just started. There was a big change to the car, and now I think it's a perfect time because I think we're all fairly on a level playing field, and MX5 is just an amazing car to drive, whether you're like a new driver or like experienced. And yeah, the racing in it is just so good. You got a combination of like the car is really tough to drive on the limit, and then you have that with the draft, and it just makes some really great racing. So yeah, as we've seen throughout the season, it's really tight stuff, nice door-to-door action, and lots of draft. And yeah, I guess yeah, now would be probably a better time than ever to get into it. So yeah, I encourage anybody who hasn't driven it or is like has driven it before and is looking to get back into it to get on it, because it's yeah, it's a great car to drive, and when you give it a chance, it is like one of the greatest cars to drive. So yeah, really love this car.
Really love this car. Final question then. How do you plan on celebrating your title?
That's a good question. I did some donuts there at the start finish. And you know, it might just I don't know. I always love a spaghetti dinner, so I might make myself some spaghetti, and you know, yeah, it was and yeah, just like to thank everybody involved in making this possible. Some really great driving with everybody. Like in about a 4 or 5 way championship battle there at the end. That was a lot of fun. So hats off to everybody who showed up this season, and everybody who puts this thing on. All you guys in the broadcast booth, and yeah, hopefully we can get season 2 going soon, because that was a lot of fun. And also a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and Happy Holidays to everybody.
Well, there you heard it first. Spaghetti dinners are the way to win championships. Brandon Hawkin there joining us from SRC Movano Corsa, your winner of the championship here for Super Sprint Championship Season 1 in the MX5s. John, final thoughts before we bring the season to a close. You earn your luck in this series, and for Brandon Hawkin, he was able to use it in the final race of the season. That's what his races in the first 7 rounds afforded him in terms of opportunity. That will do it for us with Ronin Sim Sport, of course, on YouTube and on Twitch. A massive thank you to everyone who has been watching this incredible showcase of MX5 driving, from all the drives that have been racing, from John Vining, who's been alongside me, and of course, Caitlin Penny earlier on in the season. My name is Jake Sperry. That then is a season which shows that it is about consistency. You have to be consistent to win this sort of championship, and the least bad results you can find, even if you have to only find a finish goes a long way in a championship like this. Brandon Hawkin is the most consistent driver in this field. He has consistently shown why. He is your champion for Season 1. Season 2 will be a little while yet, but enjoy your Christmas, enjoy your New Year. 2023 is the year of MX5 racing.
Absolutely. Thank you all to these drivers for joining in on this late notice, gearing up week in, week out, delivering exciting racing left and right, both these races. It was fantastic watching that 6-way fight just about every single week. So thank you all, and we'll see you again in 2020.